Hey, welcome back to all of you guys. Welcome back. Nice to see you guys. Welcome back to everyone online as well. We're going to move into this next topic of practicing in a world of the unknowing, relationships with non-practitioners, because it's really great when people come to the temple like this and they're learning and they're growing and developing and learning that your own feelings are being caused by what's going on in your own mind and all these kinds of things. But there's plenty of people in the world that aren't here right now, right? Maybe people that are in your life, maybe like your parents or your siblings or life partners or your children. And if those people aren't understanding the same things that you're understanding, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, it can be quite a challenge to be in these relationships because they can oftentimes be blaming you for the feelings that they're experiencing. Or let's just say someone that's close to you goes on a business trip, like a life partner, and they're on a business trip and they call you and they say, "Hey, honey, do you miss me?" And you're like, "No, I don't miss you." They can have a really hard time with that, right? Because they might think that that's what love is, right? And they might think that because you don't miss them, that you don't love them. So when you're learning and growing and developing on this path, you're going to know things and understand things, and you're going to do things in the world very differently than the average person. And sometimes you can have a real difficult challenge in those relationships, and they can be having a difficult time too in a relationship with you. So this topic here is to be able to help you understand how to deal with these kinds of situations that you're experiencing. And just like always, I'm going to stop and see what questions you guys have. So if you guys could use the microphones here and online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So first, let me just explain what I'm talking about here in terms of what is a non-practitioner. What a non-practitioner is someone who is not actively learning and practicing the path to enlightenment as taught by the Buddha. The Buddha referred to this during his lifetime as an untrained worldling. You'll see this in his teachings. And the reason why he shares this is because, of course, the person isn't getting training, but he refers to them as a worldling because their mind's holding on to the world. Their mind is craving and holding on to the things in the world. It's important that when we talk about this definition of a non-practitioner, that we don't develop the idea of it's a us versus them mentality, right? Like that wouldn't be wise. We just need to understand that there's different thoughts and ideas and opinions. There's different wisdom that one person's going to have versus another. And someone who's on the path to enlightenment, they're going to know and understand things about the world very differently than someone who's not on the path to enlightenment. And you just need to recognize that and acknowledge that, because as you're learning and growing and developing on this path, other people aren't, and this can be a real challenge to be in those relationships. Even if there's someone who's maybe even says that they're practicing Buddhist teachings and they're learning in some temple or, maybe they've been reading books or something like this, you shouldn't assume that what you understand about the teachings of the Buddha is the same things that they understand about the teachings of the Buddha. I've had people come here before, sit right here in front of me, and they come in and prior to class, they'll be talking to me and tell me that they've been studying the teachings of the Buddha for 30 years, right? And they say that they've been a monk for 15 years out of that 30 years. And then usually because I'm interested in helping people, I'm going to say, oh yeah, really? That's interesting. And then I'm going to start asking them questions in order to be able to understand their thoughts and where they are on the path so that then I can help them. So I'll usually ask them, what is it that causes anger? Right? And this is someone who says that they're in the Buddhist teachings for 30 years and they were a monk for 15 years. And I'll say, what causes anger? And they say, oh, that's very difficult. I can't really explain that. That's too hard to explain. Where that's the very first teaching of the Buddha, to understand what is causing your own anger, which is craving, desire, attachment. That's the Four Noble Truths. And here's somebody that's been in the teachings of the Buddha for 30 years and they don't even understand that yet. So this term of non-practitioner, it's important that you don't just apply it to someone who's not around Buddhist teachings at all, because definitely that person is a non-practitioner. But even people who are in what they would consider to be a temple or a community of practitioners, they may not be studying the teachings of the Buddha as taught by the Buddha. They might actually be studying other things that aren't even the Buddha's teachings. So some of the things that you can identify to be able to see this is that if somebody's doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer as part of the teachings of the Buddha, They're not understanding the teachings of the Buddha, the very first teaching of the Buddha. So you shouldn't assume that just because someone says that they're in Buddhist teachings, that they're actually studying the teachings that you're studying, that it could oftentimes be very different. So a non-practitioner is someone who's not actively learning and practicing the path to enlightenment as taught by the Buddha. And this non-practitioner is going to think about the world very differently and have a different understanding than what you have of the world. If you understand the Four Noble Truths, which is the problem is discontentedness, the cause is craving, desire, attachment. The elimination is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And the path leading to the complete elimination of the discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's what you're going to understand, but they're not going to understand this. So if you've studied this already deeply, then you already know that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. But they won't understand craving, desire, attachment, and they'll constantly be struggling. They'll be getting angry and frustrated and agitated and annoyed. They'll have all these different feelings, and they might even be attributing some of these feelings to you and thinking that it's you that's causing these feelings. So this non-practitioner is going to typically blame you for the things that they're experiencing. And this is where the real struggle comes in, because you'll know with 100% certainty that it's not you that's causing their feelings, but they don't know that. And you can't sit down and explain to them the Four Noble Truths and help them to be able to understand it, because maybe you don't even have the ability to teach, or it's not even your place to teach this person. Maybe it's an acquaintance or a coworker or somebody like this, and sitting down and trying to explain to them the Four Noble Truths would be unwise, because now you're giving them unsolicited guidance. So most likely this non-practitioner is going to have what the Buddha refers to as wrong view. What right view is understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and that it's craving, desire, attachment that's producing it. Wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. And as long as somebody has wrong view, if you're around them, they're going to blame you in certain situations for the feelings that they're having, because they're going to have certain expectations of you, certain things that they want from you, certain cravings, desires. And when you meet their expectations, they're going to be happy about that. But when you don't meet their expectations and you don't do what they want you to do, they're going to get angry and frustrated, and they're going to blame you. And this is coming from what the Buddha refers to as wrong view. They have the wrong view of what's really truly causing their discontent feelings. So if you get established in right view, it can be really challenging to be around people who have wrong view, because they could easily be blaming you for the things that they're experiencing. They most likely won't understand true love. This topic that I just taught you, they most likely won't understand that. So they might actually be trying to put expectations on you. They might actually think that is their love, right? We were talking about parents a bit, where parents will oftentimes put expectations on their children. They actually think that's their love. They think that by trying to get you to do things a certain way in your life, they think that's their love. They don't realize that that's not their love. That's their craving. That's their wants. That's their expectations. So when we get our cravings, desires, and attachments out of the way, our true love can shine through more and more. But for somebody who doesn't understand true love, they're going to keep trying to put expectations on you and keep trying to control you and force you to do things their way. And they're going to think that's their love. And they don't understand that, but you will. So it can be real challenging to be in a relationship with someone, whether it's a parent, a sibling, or a life partner, where you're understanding true love and they're not. Because just like I said in the example, if your life partner went on a business trip and you called them and said, or they called you and said, "Hey, honey, I've been gone for 2 weeks. Did you miss me?" "No, I didn't miss you." Right? It doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means you're not attached to them, that your feelings aren't attached to them. You can enjoy when you're with them, but you can enjoy when you're away from them as well. But for their mind, they don't understand that potentially. And now they're struggling with hearing you say, "I don't miss you." Right? They think that because you don't miss them, you don't love them, because they are not understanding what is true love. So by you understanding true love and them not understanding true love, it's going to be a challenge in certain situations. So I'm going to teach you how to overcome this. They may not be actively cultivating wholesome qualities and eliminating unwholesome qualities. They might have the perspective that they're perfect and everybody else is the problem. This is what the ego will do to you. The conceit in the mind, the ego, will make you think that what you're doing is right and everything that everyone else is doing is wrong. So You might be around people who don't understand that they are an imperfect being, that they have work to do, and they may not be cultivating wholesome qualities, and they may not be working to eliminate unwholesome qualities. And again, this can be a real struggle being around this person because they're essentially stuck, and you're trying to grow and develop and become a better and better person, but yet this person is stuck. Right? So this is what a non-practitioner is. And these are some of the complications that an individual will experience by being in a relationship with someone like this. But if you are only ever in relationships with people who are functioning perfectly, you would only be in relationships with enlightened beings. And you probably don't have very many enlightened beings in your life, right? So you're going to need to learn how to be in relationships with people who are on the path and who are growing and learning and developing. And you're going to need to learn how to be in relationships with people who aren't on the path. That's part of being an enlightened being, is that you can associate with anybody. You can have harmonious relationships with anybody. It doesn't matter whether they're on the path or they're off the path. You can actually be in relationships with all these people and have harmonious relationships. But you need to learn how to do this in order to be able to accomplish that. So that's what I'm going to help you to understand. So the first thing is that knowing the teachings and observing non-practitioners struggle in their day-to-day life, but yet they're uninterested to learn and practice the path to enlightenment, can oftentimes cause difficulties within your own mind. Because if you're craving and desiring for your mom or dad to be peaceful and joyful, and you know that it's these teachings that are going to lead to that peace and joy, but they're uninterested in learning and practicing these teachings, you can really struggle. Because what you're going to find is the more that you learn and practice these teachings, your mind's going to be becoming more and more peaceful, more and more joyful. And your life is going to become better and better. It's going to be improving more and more and more. But yet you see your mom and dad over here struggling, or you see your life partner struggling, or your brothers and sisters are over here struggling with the most simple, minor problems that you can look at and you can see it's so minor and so simple. But to them, it's so difficult. It's such a big challenge. So if your mind knows the teachings and you're observing non-practitioners struggling, but yet they're uninterested to learn and practice the teachings, you can actually experience painful feelings. Where this is coming from is your craving, desire, attachment, your longing, yearning, your attachment to this person, wanting them to be a certain way. You're going to need to eliminate your attachment to helping people, your craving, your desire. It doesn't mean that you don't ever help people. It just means that you eliminate your longing, yearning for it, right? Because if you're longing, yearning, and you really want to help mom, if she gets your help and she receives your help, you'll be happy. But if she's not interested in your help, you'll be angry or sad or frustrated. But also, if you are all the way over here on the other side, where you could care less about mom and what's going on with mom, you're not going to be happy and joyful there either. So there's this middle way where you can help people, but your feelings and emotions aren't attached to this. I'll give you an example of this. My mom knew as I was growing up that I was somebody that she could come to get help from. From around the age of 17 or 18, she started coming to me and asking me for help with different things. And I would help her and I would give her advice. She very rarely did what I recommended, but nonetheless, she came and asked for advice and got help, right? So there was a time probably in my late 20s, early 30s, where she came to me and she said, "David, I really need your help." I said, "Okay, what do you got going on, Mom?" And she explained the whole problem to me, everything that was going on. It probably took her 30 minutes, 45 minutes to explain it to me. And then it took me another 15, 20 minutes to give her advice of how to solve this particular issue. And at the end of the conversation, she said, "David, I think all the advice you just gave me is 100% accurate, and this is exactly what I should do. This will actually solve the problem, but I'm not going to do it that way." And I said, "Okay, no problem. Do whatever you like, Mom." And she said, "Okay, well, I thank you for your advice. Thank you for your time, but I'm going to go now." And I said, "Okay, Mom, up to you. You know, I love you. Bye-bye." Right? So my love is unconditional. My willingness to help her is unconditional. My willingness to help her isn't based on whether or not she does what I want or not. Right? And I understand that she may or may not do what it is that I'm suggesting. If I had a craving to help Mom, I could only be happy if she does things my way. Right? So Mom calls me back about 6 months later and she says, "Hey, David, it happened again." I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, I listened to your advice and I did things exactly the opposite of what you suggested, and it turned out miserably. It turned out horrible. And I said, no worries, Mom. I still love you. Maybe now you've learned a little bit through this process, right? No big deal. Whereas if I had a craving to help Mom, I would have been upset and angry in that situation, or frustrated that she didn't do things my way. So you're going to need to get to a point where you're willing to help people, but you don't have a craving, desire, attachment to do it. And you're also not all the way over here where you could care less. So in this situation, Mom was asking for help, so I helped her, right? And my help was not based on whether or not she does what I recommend. I was just sharing with her without any expectation of anything in return. So you're going to need to eliminate any craving that you have to help people, and understand that they're going to need to approach these teachings on their own terms, right? At their own time. I'll give you another example of this. Sometimes my sister has issues and she talks to me and she'll tell me what she's got going on in her life. And I'll say, the Buddha has a really good teaching that'll help you in this situation. And I'm waiting to see if she says, oh yeah, and what is that? Right? Because if she says, what is that? Now I'm going to help her. But if she doesn't ask for help, I'm not going to help her, because I'm not going to give her unsolicited advice. So this has happened a few times where she'll tell me about a certain issue and I'll be like, the Buddha this teaching from the Buddha would really help you in that situation. He's got some great insight here. And then she never asked for any help. Right? So she never asked for any help. So I don't help her. I just let her know it's available. And then if she's interested in that, I will help her. So I've done this like 2 or 3 times over multiple years, right? And she's never asked for any help. So I don't help her, right? Well, we went several years, and there was a time about a year ago where she sent me a message and she said, hey, David. So I assumed that she wasn't learning my teachings, right? She sent me a message about a year ago. She said, hey, David, I was at work the other day and my coworkers were talking about Buddhism, and they started asking me some questions and I was able to answer their questions. I was like, oh yeah, how are you able to do that? How are you able to answer their questions? She said, because I read your post in your Facebook group. Right? So she went all this time where I was offering her help essentially, and she never took me up on it. Right? But on her own, she was reading the post that I put into the Facebook group to be able to learn the teaching. So she understood to a certain degree. So she had to approach these teachings on her own terms. She wasn't interested in me sitting there explaining it to her in person. She chose to read it at her own pace. Right? So you never know what someone's going to do and how they're going to be learning. So if I had a craving to teach my sister, when she didn't ask for help, I would have been upset. So you need to let people approach these teachings on their own terms. You're not interested in pushing the teachings into someone's life, because that's putting an expectation on them and trying to force them and control them to do things. If people are going to get help in these teachings, they need to pull the teachings into their life. These teachings don't get pushed out into the world. You don't see Thailand sending missionaries all throughout the world and trying to convince people to learn and practice teachings of the Buddha. That's not the way these teachings work. A community needs to pull them into their community, and then that's how people learn and practice and grow. Everyone needs to approach these teachings on their own terms, just like you. Nobody forced you to be here today. These are your choice to be here and learn and grow and develop on the path, right? And that's the only way this is going to work. Because if someone tries to pressure you or force you to do something, what's the first thing you do? Dig your heels in, right? You resist it, right? So you're not interested in going out into the world and pressuring or forcing or pushing the teachings into the world. Allow people to approach these teachings on their own terms so they can pull them into their life. A non-practitioner is going to have a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct. So when you're around these people, they might have things like wrong speech and wrong action, right? They might talk to you bitter and harsh and hostile and aggressive, where you're trying to be loving and kind and warm and gentle and polite and respectful, where these non-practitioners might be bitter and harsh and hostile, thinking that you deserve it, right? So if you're around non-practitioners who are being bitter, harsh, and hostile, you're going to need to train your mind to be unaffected by that. Understanding that not everyone's going to talk to you in a polite, kind, friendly, and respectful way, because that's permanence. Even when you're enlightened, There's going to be occasional people who speak to you in ways that is unkind and disrespectful, but your mind will be unaffected by it by that time. So as you're growing on this path and you're around your parents, your siblings, coworkers, neighbors, if they're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, the best thing you can do is just walk away. Sitting there and arguing with them and trying to convince them how unwise they are to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, it's not going to work because their mind isn't open to learning from you. They're angry, they're frustrated, they're agitated, they're annoyed. They have no idea that it's their own mind that's causing this, and it's not the proper time to talk. The best thing you can do is just walk away. Let them sit with that anger. You protect your own mind. The Buddha calls this protecting the doorways to discontentedness, because you have doorways, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. This is how you take in contact, and that's going to trigger one of your cravings, desires, attachments. And if you hear your mom yelling and hollering or your dad yelling and hollering in your ear, that's going to potentially trigger one of your cravings, desires, attachments, and now you're going to become angry. So if you're around people who are being bitter and harsh and hostile, the best thing you can do is walk away. It's kind of like if you were driving down the road and there was somebody driving erratically on the road. The best thing to do is get as far away from that person as possible. You see they're making unwise decisions. If you try to be near them, their unwise decisions can affect you, and now you can crash in your car. When I see someone driving erratically, I let off the accelerator and I just let them go. I would like to be as far away from that person as possible, right? Because I'm not interested in being around people who are making unwise decisions. This person's mind who's angry and bitter and harsh and hostile, and they're being harsh and aggressive and disrespectful in their speech, they're making unwise decisions. They're just like that erratic driver, and you don't know what's going to happen with this person. They can start picking up things and throwing it and yelling and hollering and doing different things. You'd like to get as far away from that person as possible. So rather than react when you hear these things from people, you would like to respond in these situations. And a response can be to say nothing, ignore what they're doing, and walk away. You're not responsible to teach that person what they should or shouldn't be doing in the world. Sometimes that's what people do. When they see someone being bitter, harsh, and hostile, you might feel like it's your job, your responsibility to step in and teach them what they should or shouldn't be doing. This is unwise because now you're putting yourself in direct conflict with this individual. It's better to respond by ignoring what they're doing and just getting away, because it's just like that erratic driver. How are you going to teach that erratic driver to be able to improve their driving? They're not in any situation to be able to learn how to improve their driving. So it's the same thing when that person's mind is bitter and harsh and hostile. They're not in any situation to be able to learn how to be loving and kind and warm and gentle in that situation. So it's better to just get as far away as possible. You might notice that you're quietly frustrated in certain situations, that as you walk away from this situation, you might be quietly frustrated. This is your craving, desire, attachment that's producing that. But it's better to be quietly frustrated than overtly angry and hostile and bitter. When you put out bitterness and harshness and hostility through your intention, speech, and actions, it's just going to come back to you. So you go through this period of time where when you first get on the path to enlightenment, you still have anger and bitterness and harshness and hostility, and you're putting that out to a certain degree. But then you get to a certain phase in your growth and development where you're quietly frustrated, where you're not being overtly hostile and bitter anymore, but you're quietly frustrated. And that's part of the transformation that the mind needs to go through. But it's better to be quietly frustrated than bitter and harsh and hostile overtly, because when you're putting it out, it's just going to come back to you. But that quiet frustration is your mind doing the work to try to get rid of its cravings, desires, attachments. And then eventually you're going to get to the point where you're not even quietly frustrated anymore, where your mind's just completely peaceful and joyful. And it's going to take multiple years for your mind to be trained in this direction. So it's better to be quietly frustrated than overtly hostile and angry and bitter and harsh. You can choose to move on from relationships, while maintaining loving kindness and compassion for all beings. Understanding that any discontentedness that you're experiencing is a result of your own cravings, desires, attachments. Let me explain this one to you. So from the outside looking in, these two scenarios that I'm going to describe to you look exactly the same. You're ending a relationship and you're moving on. But there's a difference. In the unenlightened state, when we lack wisdom of the Four Noble Truths, we think that the feelings that we're experiencing is coming from something external. So when you experience painful feelings, you might try to push this person away, thinking that they're the cause of your feelings. And now you might try to move out of the relationship, pushing this person away, blaming them for the feelings that you're experiencing, right? This is wrong view. You're not interested in that. That's aversion. That's pushing someone away, thinking they're the problem, and you haven't actually solved your problem, because the true cause of your anger and frustration is within your own mind. So if you're in a relationship and you see that it's not going well and there's hostility and bitterness and you'd like to move on from the relationship, there's no harm in moving on from the relationship. But you need to maintain right view, where you understand that any discontent feelings that you're experiencing is coming from your own mind. It's not coming from this other person. So choosing to leave out of the relationship isn't going to solve your anger and your hostility and your bitterness, because you haven't eliminated your craving, desire, attachment. But what you might decide to do is distance yourself from this person for a period of time, or indefinitely, in order to train your mind to let go of the craving, desire, attachment that is in your own mind. So from the outside looking in, it looks exactly the same. A person ended a relationship and they moved on. But the difference is in the first scenario, the person lacks wisdom. They think the painful feelings that they're experiencing is coming from this person, and they're going to push that person away and then move on in the relationship, thinking that they're the problem. And you might even think you've solved your problem, but you really haven't, because the very next relationship that you get into where somebody does that exact same thing, you're going to be angry again, because that person is doing things that are opposite of your expectations and what you want. So you haven't actually solved anything, because this person who's doing things in a certain way that triggered one of your cravings, when you push them away, it just takes another person to do that exact same thing, and you're going to get angry again. So if you're going to leave out of a relationship, you need to maintain right view to understand that any painful feelings that you're experiencing is coming from your own mind, and you're going to need to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, your wants, and your expectations, right? So I'll give you an example of this. I was married initially to a Thai woman, a great person, but we just didn't match. And we realized this, and we decided to get a divorce and move on. One of the things that I noticed is that she was very quiet. And I didn't notice this when we were dating and prior to marriage. I didn't notice it until we got into the marriage, that she was very, very quiet. She hardly ever talked. And I enjoy talking. I enjoy having conversations with my life partner, right? I enjoy having that conversation, but she was super quiet, right? And for a long time, I kept trying to put my expectations on her and kept trying to force her to talk and tell her, like, hey, this is what I want. This is what I need. I want you to talk. You're always so quiet. You never talk. And I kept trying to turn this spoon into a fork, right? She was a spoon, but I was trying to turn her into a fork. And you can't eat soup with a fork, right? You need to eat soup with a spoon, right? But I kept trying to turn her into a fork, right? So in this situation, with me constantly trying to put my expectations on her and wanting her to be a certain way, she would never be that way, right? And I got angry and frustrated, and there were other things too that were going on. Again, great person, pleased that I had the relationship, but ultimately I decided to move on in the relationship. But I realized as part of this that I had this craving to have conversation with a life partner. And that's what I really wanted. That was one of the criteria that I needed in order to have a life partner. So by the time I met my current wife, who we're now been together for 18 years or so, we'll be together for the rest of this life, I made sure that I had someone that was interested in talking and having conversation. And now when I was with her, she and I had lots and lots and lots of conversations, all kinds of conversations, right? Particularly early on in our relationship. Wow, this is wonderful. But because of impermanence, now we've been together for 18 years. We don't have those kinds of conversations anymore, right? Because things have changed, right? We already understand each other so well. We don't have those deep, meaningful conversations anymore because she understands me. I understand her. We don't need to have those types of conversations anymore. So my mind extinguished this craving to have someone to talk to by getting it, doing it for a period of time. And then when things changed and now we no longer really talk as deeply as we once did, my mind's completely content. Right? So you're going to need to be observant of your mind that even though I ended this relationship with my first wife, I knew that this is something that my mind was really interested in doing, was having this craving fulfilled to have a partner that I could talk with. And then once I got that and I did that, my craving got extinguished, right? And now we're at the point where me and my wife, we understand each other. We don't need to have these real long, deep, meaningful conversations anymore because I know where she's at in life. She knows where I am in life. We understand each other and we just rock and roll and just make things happen for our life. So you're going to need to pay attention to your mind and pay attention to your relationships, that if you're moving on from a relationship, be sure that you look at your own mind and see what were the painful feelings you were having in this relationship and what were you craving, what were you longing, yearning for, and make sure you extinguish that craving. You can extinguish the craving by cutting it off and letting it go, or like in this example, I fulfilled it, right? I fulfilled the craving by finding a partner that was interested in talking. Then you're going to need to eliminate your cravings, desires, wants, and expectations that all beings will practice these teachings, right? Because if you have these non-practitioners in your life, you might have this craving for them to practice the teachings. You can't force someone to practice these teachings. So my sister, I don't force her to practice these teachings. If she's upset, if she's angry or frustrated, hey, that's her mind. Her brother's right here to be able to help her. But if she chooses not to learn and practice these teachings, that's her choice, right? Same thing with my mom. When my mom was alive, if she chooses not to learn and practice these teachings, okay, that's her choice. She'll continue to suffer. She'll continue to be angry or frustrated. And that's just her choice. That's what she's choosing to do. So you're going to need to not have a craving, desire, attachment for everybody to practice the teachings and try to force that on people. You're going to need to train the mind to be comfortable with accepting other people's choices and decisions, in that their decisions are not going to match to your wants and expectations. What you decide for your life is going to be very different than what others choose for their life, right? Not having expectations that everybody's going to do things the same way as you. So notice what you're hearing here from me as we're starting to talk about this topic, about having relationships with non-practitioners. Everything is about changing your mind. I'm not teaching you to change other people. That's not what I'm teaching you here. I'm teaching you how to train your mind, right? Sometimes when people see this topic, like, oh, I'm going to learn how to be around people who aren't practicing these teachings, so that means I get to change other people. No, everything I'm teaching you is about training your mind, because you can't change other people. You can't force them to do things the way you want them to do it. But if you change your mind and how you interact with this person, you can get to a point where you're peaceful and joyful. So there was a period of my time in my life where I really wanted my mom to be a certain way. And we could never be peaceful and joyful in our relationship. It wasn't until I got rid of my expectations for mom to be a certain way that then we had a peaceful relationship. And she still wasn't practicing these teachings by the time she died. And that's okay. That's her choice. But if I had the expectation that she would practice these teachings, I would never be able to be peaceful in that relationship. The problem is not that others are not practicing the teachings, but instead that the mind wants and expects others to practice the teachings. That's what you're looking to get rid of. The craving, the desire, the attachment, wanting other people to do things a certain way. Understand that you can disagree with others' intentions, speech, and actions while choosing to remain peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. I can tell you, even with my wife, being together for 18 years, I disagree with the choices and decisions that she makes in some situations, but I can maintain my peace and joy because I don't expect that all of our decisions are going to be the same. In the past, when I didn't understand this, we'd argue, right? We'd fight. It was like a fight to death. I had to convince her that I was right and she was wrong. and she was trying to convince me that she was right and I was wrong, right? It was like a fight to death, because that's how two unenlightened beings function. They function very much like an animal, like a fight to death, because what you're doing on this path is becoming a better and better human being. And you're learning that you don't need to fight to death. You don't need to go out into the world and try to convince other people to do things your way. So now when we have something that she would like to do things one way and I would like to do it another way, we just talk. We just have discussions. And at the end of the discussion, she might be agreeing with me and we do it that way, or I might be agreeing with her and we do it her way, or we might just choose to do it two different ways. And she's going to do it her way and I'm going to do it my way. And we're completely fine with that. But it's a discussion. It's a conversation where I'm sharing with her my thoughts, she's sharing with me her thoughts, and then we just make our own decisions, not trying to convince each other to do things a certain way. So we'd like to be able to get to the point where you understand you can disagree with people while still maintaining your peace and joy. Disagreement doesn't mean disrespect. Sometimes people think that if you disagree, that equals disrespect, but that's not actually true. It just means that there's impermanence, right? There's never a time where we're going to all agree on everything. So sometimes people's minds think that disagreement equals disrespect. That's not true. It just means we have different opinions, different views. We've had different experiences in life. So of course we have different opinions and views. So disagreement doesn't mean disrespect. Understand that you can disagree with others' intentions, speech, and actions while maintaining your loving kindness and your compassion, not wanting them to say and do the same things as you. Because remember, what loving kindness is just a genuine interest in seeing this person be well. I can tell you that every girlfriend, my ex-wife included, I love them. I love every single one of them, meaning I would like to see them be well. I'm no longer in a relationship with them, but I still love them. I don't hate them, right? Why hate them? There's no need to hate them. We had a relationship. I learned certain things in those relationships. They learned certain things in those relationships. And for whatever reason, we decided to end our relationship and move on. No need to hate that person. I can actually still love them, meaning I have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, right? And then you can have compassion, which is concern for the misfortune of others. So just because they do things differently than me, and I chose to no longer be in a relationship with them, or they chose to not be in a relationship with me, I can still love them, have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And that's what you would like to be able to get to, that your love isn't based on whether people do things your way or not, that you can maintain your love and your kindness towards others even when they do things differently than you, especially when they do things differently than you, because that's the biggest challenge. When people do the same things as you, oh, it's easy for you to love those people. But the people who do things differently than you, that's the challenge, to be able to have love for that person, right? So you're going to need to work on that, where you don't have this expectation that people are going to say and do things the same way as you, and you can still love them, meaning have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. Okay? So I'm just going to stop here, because this is what I usually do in this talk. It's just a short little talk to help you guys understand living life with non-practitioners and having a relationship with non-practitioners. And then what I do is I just turn the rest of the class over to you guys, that there might be certain struggles that you're having in your relationships. And we can just have an open discussion, that if there's certain things you guys would like to talk about, you can share with me some of the challenges that you're having, whether it's a life partner, children, parents, siblings, coworkers, neighbors, anybody that's in your life. You can share that with me if you like, and I will help you to be able to see how to move past that and get to the point where you can experience peace and joy. So is there anybody that would like to share anything? Yes, ma'am. We have a microphone right here in the white bowl. And for those of you guys online, you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
Wait. It maybe takes a little bit long, and my English is not so good. I try to make myself clear. Well, about the true love, actually, I'm actually struggle for that. I had a relationship with my boyfriend, and for 1 year, And I'm 31, and before that, I never had a relationship with any others. And I just found out I always force him to do things that I want. So that's why we always argue and had fight. But just like one year, 1 month ago, and I tried to let him be with me to watch a movie, and he just doesn't want to do that, and that makes me feel that he doesn't love me anymore. So I just he bought a milk tea for me, and just threw the milk tea to his body, and he's so mad at me. And things like that always happen. And this year I broke up with him like maybe for 3 or 5 times, always been that. And every time we fight and I feel he doesn't love me anymore, and I just try to break up with him. But after a few days, I just feel I cannot live without him. I just feel the love and is full with me. I still love him, so I came back to him. So this is the first thing. I always force others people do things I want them to do. This kind of bother me. And in the last 8 months, I was a babysitter. Yeah, that's my job. And I take 3 babies, and 2 of them are 4 years old, and 1 is 8 years old. And sometimes if they don't do things that I want them to do, I become so mad. It's like my face is turning very, very bad. And I always, and I even do more bad things to them, like shaking their body or something. Their parents don't know that. Don't. If they know that, I will. It's more. So I think this one is bothering me for my life and even my work. This is my first question.
Okay.
And
let's talk about the first one first. Okay. So I'll talk about the children first, then we'll talk about your boyfriend. Okay. So when you're around other beings and you're responsible for their care, like the children, what you need to be able to understand is your role is to guide them, right? You can't force and control them to do things a certain way. A child lacks wisdom, right? When we were talking about the talk about true love, love without attachment, I explained to you that one of the biggest challenges that the Buddha discovered in the mind, or the biggest issue that he discovered, is a lack of wisdom. It's called ignorance, or unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom of how the world truly works. And this is what causes someone to make unwise decisions that then produces unwholesome results, or unwholesome karma. A child is an individual who has a lot of lack of wisdom because they're new to the world. They haven't had a time to be able to grow and develop and learn about the world and make wise decisions. So a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, even my son, he's 13 years old, he still makes unwise decisions sometimes. Right? So these beings that are young, they're going to make unwise decisions sometimes, just like you. And what you're going to need to be able to do is understand that they are growing and developing, and they don't have the wisdom that they need in order to be able to make the decisions the way that you make them, because you've had 31 years to develop the wisdom that you have, but they've only had 4 years and 8 years. So they're going to need you to be patient so that you can then guide them and teach them and help them. And they're not going to do things your way, even when you teach them the first time. I've talked with my son many, many, many times about lying. We've talked about this so many times, and he still lies occasionally. Last night he lied to me, right, about something so silly. It was just, he didn't need to lie about it, but he lied. I catch him every single time, and he just hasn't learned that he needs to stop lying, right? Because they just don't understand, and their mind has craving, desire, attachment, which is motivating their lies. That's what motivates lying. So if you can get rid of your craving for this other being to be a certain way, and understand that your role is just to guide them in their life, not to control them and force them, but to help them gain wisdom, because that's what's going to get them to the point where they're making better and better decisions, is their wisdom. So if you just grab them and shake them, you're not giving them any wisdom. all they're experiencing is how difficult it is to live in this world. They haven't cultivated any wisdom. So you need to sit down with them and teach them. So if there's a certain thing, let's just say one of the kids slapped the other kid, right? Well, of course, you'd like to separate them and sit them down and talk about it and have a discussion and help them see how unwise it is to hit each other, and how when you hit someone, then someone's going to try to hit you back, and that it's unwise to cause harm to each other. So you sit down and you talk it out with them. And you even, with young kids like 4 and 8 years old, you can even play games with them. You can do coloring. You can read stories to them to be able to help them understand how unwise it is to do things like hitting or things of this nature. So that should help you with those kinds of things, but you're going to need to get better and better at doing it, because just talking about it here is one thing, but going home and actually doing it is a whole nother thing. Then in terms of the boyfriend, you said this was your first significant relationship, right? Yeah. So it's understandable that in this situation, you don't have the wisdom that you need in order to have a life partner, because it's your first one, right? You don't come preloaded with the wisdom that you need to have successful relationships. That's why the teachings of the Buddha are here, to be able to guide you in how to have harmonious relationships. And if you haven't studied and you haven't learned and you haven't understood how to make wise decisions in your relationships, you're going to struggle in your relationships. I imagine you probably have challenges in your relationship with your parents too, right? Do you have challenges in those relationships as well with your parents? Yeah. Yeah. So that's normal, right? Because you've never learned how to have a healthy relationship with your parents. So you don't know how to have a healthy relationship with a life partner either, because you've never cultivated the wisdom that you need in order to be able to have that healthy relationship with your parents. So therefore, with your life partner, you're having challenges there too. So that's why it's really important that you train your mind and cultivate your mind, because what's happening here is you're getting attached, or you are attached to your boyfriend, right? And now when you're attached and you're wanting and expecting him to do things a certain way, he doesn't do them that way, and you get angry, and then you break up from him and you go away from him, and you think that that's going to solve the problem by pushing him away. But then when you're away from him, you start experiencing painful feelings there too, because your mind is holding on and craving permanence. And that's why you keep going back to him, because your mind doesn't want to let go. So the whole problem of why you're choosing to leave is the whole problem of why you're coming back, is because your mind's still holding on. So when you're with him, you're holding on and you're wanting him to do things a certain way. He doesn't do it that way, so you leave. But then when you leave, your mind is still holding on and craving that permanence, and this feels very painful for you to leave out of the relationship. And your mind thinks the way to solve this is to go back into the relationship, because the mind's getting what it wants at this point, which is its cravings fulfilled. It's getting those pleasant feelings. So you need to decide whether you're going to choose to be with this partner or not, right? That's what you need to decide. Are you going to try to make this work or not? And if you're going to try to make this work, but even if you're not going to try to make this work, it would be wise for you and him to be able to learn this path and learn how to train your mind. Because as long as your mind has craving, desire, attachment, which every unenlightened mind has, in some cases you're going to get what you want and you're going to be happy about that. And in some cases you're not, and you're going to be angry and frustrated about that. And your mind's going to keep trying to control him to do things your way. And he's going to keep trying to control you to do things his way. So the way that you cut through all of this is you learn and you grow and you develop. And you can do this probably. Do you live in China? Is that where you're from? Yeah, you can do this from China, or if you live here, you can do it from here, where you're learning, you're reading, you're growing, and maybe he decides to do the same thing. And now with more wisdom of how to have a healthy relationship, you can learn how to have a healthy relationship with him and your parents and other people. But if you do nothing, things are just going to continue to be the same. Right? Like if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. You're going to keep going to him and leaving, and going to him and leaving, going to him and leaving. So you need to be able to do things differently, which means you need to cultivate wisdom. And that's what the teachings of the Buddha are there for you, so that you can cultivate wisdom, train your mind, and experience different results. Do you have more questions, more situations?
Can I ask 2 more questions?
Sure, up to you.
Okay. And The second question is also about him. It's like we have totally different interests. Like I like reading, I like climbing, I like a lot of outgoing things, but he doesn't like. He like playing games, or he just doesn't like out. So it makes me feel like he cannot always accompany me. And I was thinking about if we get married in later, but I always do all of things by myself, and I still feel lonely maybe. So I don't know if that matters.
Yeah. So this is your craving for permanence. I want him to be with me when I go do all these things, right? Your mind is attached that if he's with me when I go mountain climbing, I think you said, right? I'm happy. But if he doesn't go with me, I'm not happy, right? That's your mind being attached and craving permanence. You guys are going to have certain activities that maybe you do together. And there's going to be certain activities that you don't do together. And you're going to need to learn how to do those things either on your own or with other people, like other friends, right? Because this partner isn't going to do everything with you. That's the craving for permanence. And you need to be able to let that go and realize that you'll do some things together and some things apart, and that's normal. That's impermanence. But as long as your mind's craving for him to do everything with you, you're not going to be happy all the time, because sometimes he's going to do things with you and sometimes he's not. So you got to get rid of that craving for permanence and just understand that you can do things on your own or with other people. And now your mind can be free. But as long as you can only be happy when he's with you, your mind's not free. You're causing that yourself.
Well, the third one is some people said you should make more I don't know, girlfriend or boyfriend, then you will know what you really want. So this is if I just meet one person and I get married with him, is that wise to do that, or you should like try other ones, try more? I'm not sure.
It's up to you. Everybody's different, right? Some people, they'll have multiple boyfriends or girlfriends before they pick a life partner. Other people, maybe they're very committed to this one person and they're willing to do the work, and they'll figure it out with this partner. But if you guys are going to have a wonderful life together, you guys are both going to need to learn and grow and develop as individuals. Like I said in the last talk, that you need to be able to understand you are not perfect, and he needs to understand he's not perfect. You need to get to the point where you're not blaming each other for the feelings that you experience, and you both need to get to the point where you're willing to get help and improve as individuals. If you guys aren't doing that, then you're stuck, right? But let me give you this scenario. If you found a life partner, a boyfriend right now that does every single thing that you do, every single thing you like to do, there's like maybe a list of 10 things, and this person enjoys doing every single thing that you do. Okay, maybe the first 6 months or year or 2 years of your relationship, you guys are doing all those things together. But then because of impermanence, things are going to change. Your interests, your activities, your hobbies are going to change. Their interests, their activities, their hobbies are going to change. And now, 5 years down the road, they're not doing all the same things that you're doing anymore. And you're not doing all the same things that they do anymore. This is just change. This is impermanence. So as long as your mind's craving permanence and wanting this person to do all the same things as you, you'll never be happy, because you will never have a life partner who enjoys doing all the same things as you. It'll never happen. So if you can let that craving go, if you guys are both willing to do some work and train your minds, you might be able to have a wonderful relationship together. But if you're not willing to train your mind and he's not willing to train his mind, it's not going to work. So you just finding another partner isn't going to fix this problem that you're having, which is problem to have harmonious relationships. Finding another partner isn't going to fix it. That's where people think the problem is external. So your friends might be telling you, oh, find another boyfriend. That's not going to fix your problem, because the problem is inside your own mind. If you're not training your mind and cultivating wisdom, it doesn't matter who your partner is, because at some point this partner is not going to do things your way. So you need to be able to see what the true problem is not your partner. The true problem is within your mind, and just getting a new partner isn't going to fix this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Would you mind turning that off so the microphone? Yeah, it would just get a little static there. Okay, Poon. I tested all these mics before class. They work just fine for me, but I don't know why when you guys use them, they don't work. They work fine for me. I tested all 6 of them.
I check.
There you go.
Got it. All right, sir. Thanks for sharing all the teachings with us. Imagine I practiced the teachings well enough at one point, and I'm able to express my true love to all beings in the world impartially. And then where and how do I place my romantic relationship, for example, with my wife, with my life partner, in my little world of relationships?
Okay.
For example, going back to the example you just gave us, you have true love for all beings. For example, your ex-wife, and also you have true love for your wife, current wife. Is there a line? And if there is a line, how to draw a line?
Okay. So the love is the mental state that you have, where you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. Your love isn't the actions that you're doing, right? Sometimes people associate the actions as that's my love. The action isn't the love. The love is the mental state. So for example, when I first met my current wife, she used to cook amazing food for me, 5 different entrees I would have when I come home, appetizers, everything. She would do laundry. She would clean the house because she wasn't working at the time. So she would do all these different things. Those actions aren't her love. Those are coming from her love, but her love was her mental state of having a genuine interest in seeing this person be well. And since she knew that I would go to work and I had my own businesses, I didn't have time to do these things. So when I came home, she would have all these things done, right? But then over time, her life changed. She ended up getting a job. She had a son. She had all these other responsibilities. So she doesn't cook, clean, or do my laundry anymore. I do all those things for myself, right? If I thought that those actions were the love, then I would think when she stops doing those things that the love is gone. But the love is the mental state of the genuine interest in seeing me be well. So she does certain things, but I don't expect her to do those things, but she does these certain things. So the love is a genuine interest in seeing all these beings be well. So the love that I have for my ex-girlfriends and wife is the same love that I have for my current wife, but my role is different here, right? So my role in these previous relationships, it's over. I don't no longer have any actions that I'm doing in order to show my love, but my mental state is still that I have love for these people, that I have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, but there's no action behind it because there's no relationship there. With my current wife, there's the same love, meaning I have a genuine interest in seeing her be well, but now I put actions behind that. Same thing with my son, right? I put actions behind that because my role is different. But I love all of you the same as I love my son, meaning I have the same genuine interest in seeing you be well as I do him, but my role is different. So the same thing for you. It's like your role with your wife is different than your neighbor or your coworker or your business partner. Your role is different, but your love is the same, meaning you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. But because your role is different, your actions are different in each of these situations. But the actions isn't the love. The love is the mental state. Having a genuine interest in seeing this person be well. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense. Could action. If I take our romantic relationship, for example.
Yeah.
So just elaborate on that in terms of is there a line? I mean, so just things that I shouldn't do to my ex and should keep doing to my wife.
Yeah. Well, you know that like you're going to be loyal and faithful and committed in terms of your sexual activity with your wife versus anybody else. You're choosing not to do those things with anybody else because that would be unwise for the reasons that you've learned before. We talk about that. But, other than that, you do whatever you think is best. There's nothing beyond sexual activity that you wouldn't do with someone else that you do with your wife, right? Like you smile at your wife, you say hello to your wife, you say good morning to your wife, you maybe even go out to food and have dinner with your wife. You can do all these things with other people too. It's just that you're doing it with her, that there's this one component that you don't have with anybody else, and that's the sexual activity. But what the Buddha talks about when he talks about having healthy relationships, he talks about 4 things that every single healthy relationship needs. He says that there needs to be giving, meaning generosity. You need to practice generosity within all your relationships. He says that you need to have endearing speech, meaning practice right speech, right? That you're practicing the Eightfold Path with right speech. He talks about that you need to have what's called beneficent conduct or moral conduct, where you're not causing any harm through your speech actions as you're interacting in the relationship. And then the 4th one, he says that you need to have equality, where you see everybody as equal, right? So this is where oftentimes people think the Buddha taught that men are above women because they think like, oh, he taught 2,500 years ago, so he had to have taught that, right? Nope, he didn't teach that. He taught everybody is equal. So in a relationship, like a husband and wife, you need to maintain the equality, that you think of yourself and your wife as being equal, that one is not above the other. So if you have these 4 things, this lays the foundation for a healthy relationship, that there's generosity, endearing speech, which is right speech from the Eightfold Path, moral conduct, which is from the Eightfold Path, and then there's the equality. And this is going to establish a healthy environment for a relationship to flourish. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay. Anybody else have any issues that you guys would like to talk about from your relationships? Yeah? I think this mic that Poon has is probably working better. Mm-hmm. It was working. I think you maybe just didn't have it close enough to your mouth.
Okay. Mr. David, the struggles I have aren't with people. I have struggles with people that are doing the same unwholesome things I'm doing as well. As you know, I have very strong craving, desire attachments in certain areas of my life. I'm making very, very unwholesome decisions right now. Mm-hmm. I could pay severe consequences for what I'm doing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm judging everyone who's doing the same thing as me. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like this, it's easier to deal with my unwholesome behavior when I'm looking at somebody else's unwholesome behavior. It's real ignorant. The question is,
how long will it last? It depends on you. Depends on how you train your mind, right? How committed you are to training it and how dedicated you are to knock down this craving. That's the amount of time it's going to take. So nobody can tell you an exact amount of time because it all depends on how dedicated you are to training your mind and staying diligent and determined day to day to be able to train your mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, what you're experiencing is very common, that people can see other people's unwholesome qualities, but they can't see their own. And they can tell other people how to change their life, but they're not willing to do the change themselves. This is a common thing that the unenlightened mind does. So if you stop looking externally and you start focusing internally, you'll be able to see more and more your own unwholesome qualities. And then you can arise dedication and energy to be able to make those changes yourself. And then that's where you're going to experience the results. Because just telling other people what they should do isn't helping you. Mm-hmm.
My question, David, is how does commitment figure into the relationship that you were describing that Buddha says the 4 qualities are?
Mm.
So if you have a long-term relationship, is commitment part of that?
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by commitment?
Commitment to making a relationship successful, and I guess getting past some of the things maybe that Joe has described.
Mm-hmm.
If you see unwholesome behavior or unwholesome, let's just say behavior happening, but you were committed to a relationship with your CEO, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
is it part of something that factors into making decisions about continuing a relationship, or is it not?
So if you focus on those 4 things, which are all things that you've got going on in your mind, right? That's everything the Buddha's talking about, is teaching you how to practice. If you practice these 4 things, you will see your relationships improving, right? So the Buddha is not teaching you to change the other person or to necessarily do something in the relationship. He's teaching you to do something, which is you practice generosity, you practice endearing speech, you practice moral conduct, and you practice thinking of equality. And then how this other person functions, more and more they're going to see you functioning that way, and they will tend to adopt those qualities. There are things that you can do to help other people to learn these teachings, but you need to be really skillful in doing that. The commitment is how much am I really interested in seeing this relationship work? But you need to be able to have a commitment without a craving, desire, attachment. Like I was at one point, improving on this path, and my wife wasn't. And I understood things that she didn't understand. And I was committed to seeing our relationship work, but I knew that I had to improve first so that I could gain the wisdom to then be able to help her. So there was a commitment without a craving, that if she would have said, hey, I'm leaving, the relationship's over, goodbye. Okay, take care, be well, and I can move on and not be frustrated or angry or upset. So the commitment was just from me, that I was dedicated to seeing this relationship work because I was interested in having this long-term life partner. I was interested in my son having the experience of having mom and dad in the house because I didn't have that growing up. So I was dedicated to her. I was dedicated to him. I was interested in seeing this all work out. But if at any point it didn't work out, I would have been fine with that too. So that's what you need to be able to get to, is that you're dedicated and committed to having this relationship, but you know that the work is all within your own mind, and now you're doing that work. And then you're completely comfortable if the relationship succeeds and continues forward, but if it separates, then you're fine with that too. You're welcome. Once you press the gray button, it just takes like a second or two to engage. These mics require patience. You need to be patient.
I have one question. How can we cope with the rules of beautiful time? I know I need to focus on this moment, but I can't control my missing. So how can we just focus now?
Did you say, how do we deal with rules?
The rules of beautiful time.
Rules of what?
Beautiful time. The past time. Yes.
The rules of
the past have some moment I think is very wonderful. I always missing.
Oh, I think I know what you're saying. Are you saying that you had something very pleasurable happen in the past?
Yes.
And now in the present moment, you want that thing to happen and you don't feel good because that thing's not happening anymore?
Yes, because that moment will not happen again.
I see. Do you have a specific example?
Like where I just example, for example, like I meet a new guys and I have a a very pleasure time with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now it's not will not happen again.
Mm-hmm.
But I always missing that time,
I see.
and
Okay.
it's not cannot control.
Yeah, this is the same problem that we've been talking about. This is craving, desire, attachment. The mind has had a certain experience and now it's clinging to it and it's wanting that to be permanent. So now in the present moment, the mind is displeased, dissatisfied because it's experiencing this, but it really wants that. That's the craving, desire, attachment. So you're going to need to train your mind in the path to enlightenment. There's a whole path. It's not a matter of me telling you something in 2 minutes that's going to fix that. You need to be able to train your mind through all the techniques that the Buddha is teaching you as part of this core central teaching, because your mind's holding on and craving permanence. That's what it's doing. That's what the unenlightened mind does. So you need to train your mind to let go and understand that whatever experience you had here, it's not permanent. It's temporary. It's impermanent. So you're going to have this experience and then you can move on to the next thing, right? So your mind, though, isn't going to know how to do that until you actually train it. So I can tell you what you need to do is train your mind to let go, but your mind doesn't know how to do that. That's where the training comes in with the Eightfold Path.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. So it's chapter 4 and 5 of this book, by the way. That's where I suggest you start, is with this first book. It's chapter 4 and 5. That's where you would really like to start. And I've done talks on this before that have been recorded, so you can watch them on our YouTube channel or our podcast, things like this. Mm-hmm.
Hello, David. I think first of all, I think I'm a nice person. I'm kind, but I think I like the ability to love. I don't feel so close to my parents, my sisters, and sometimes I'm really, really lonely. Lonely is I always feel lonely, but I cannot start a conversation with my friends, with my parents or the others, because I feel very tired to talk with others.
Mm-hmm.
And once I start to talk to others, I think that I have to find the topics. I have to make others not feel so boring. So I don't know how to. Also, I'm lonely, but I don't know how to connect with people, and sometimes it makes me really, really tired to continue the relationships with others. But I'm really lonely. Yeah.
Okay. Same problem. Craving, desire, attachment. The mind's wanting something that it doesn't have, so therefore you feel lonely. So I'm going to show you guys this because you guys weren't here when I taught this. I taught this on Monday. This is the Eightfold Path where you learn each one of these factors. This is what you need to start out with. That's why I taught it in this course on Monday. It takes me about 2.5 hours to teach this whole thing, where I walk you guys through and showing you guys how to train your mind, because it's not possible for me to just talk to you in 2 minutes or 3 minutes and fix that. But what your mind's doing is it's craving permanence, and you're craving something. And when you have it, you feel great. But when you don't have it, you feel lonely or bored or something like that. But you can't fix that with just 2 or 3 minutes worth of conversation. You're going to need to learn this whole path and then train your mind in this on a consistent, ongoing basis. And that's what's going to fix all of this for you. But you need to be able to start and understand the whole thing.
Okay, thank you again.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi. So my question is, how do you go? I'm not really looking, but for the future, how do you pick someone that you want to build a life with? Like, when there's so much, sometimes you're not compatible. Sometimes you see things that you don't value the same things, or, I guess that don't meet your expectations or stuff like that. So how do you kind of, decide?
Yeah, sure. The first thing you do is get rid of all your expectations. Don't expect this person to do any particular thing, but look for those three qualities that I talked about, which is someone who understands they're imperfect, understanding that their feelings are being caused by their own mind, and they're willing to get help and improvement. Because as long as you have expectations, you're sabotaging your ability to have a healthy relationship, because in some situations they're going to meet your expectations, in other situations they're not, and you're going to get upset and you're going to get angry. So that's why you need to get rid of any expectations and just make wise decisions around who you'd like to be with in terms of these three qualities, right? And what you would like to look at is look at their mind. Right? Oftentimes what people look at when they pick a partner is they look at their physical characteristics or their finances or their social status or their intelligence and things like this. You would like to look at their mind. So I had many, of course, girlfriends as I was, going through life, and my first wife. It wasn't until I met my current wife that I made the right choice. And the reason why is because I was looking at her mind. I didn't even know what she looked like when I first started liking her, because I first started interacting with her long before there were smartphones and internet and all that kind of stuff. I was just talking to her on the phone. And one of the things I noticed was her mind. She was in a certain situation where she could have lied, and I probably would have never found out. But she didn't lie. She actually told the truth. And that made me attracted to her. I was really interested in that because she didn't lie. And then as I got to know her, I was learning about her mind. And I didn't meet her until about a month or two after I started talking to her on the phone. And then when I met her, yeah, I thought she looked attractive, right? I liked that part of it. And then, of course, when she started cooking, I really liked that. That was really good. And all the other things that comes with that, right? Sex and laundry and cleaning. Sure, I enjoyed all that stuff. But that wasn't what kept our relationship together, because all those things are gone. Right? She doesn't do my laundry. She doesn't cook for me. She doesn't clean my area of the house. We don't have sex anymore. All these things are just things that you do, but they're all impermanent. They're going to come and go. And of course, her looks aren't the same either. She doesn't look the same way she did when we first met almost 20 years ago. But her mind, that has improved, and it's only gotten better and better and better, because she had those three qualities, right? She had the understanding that she wasn't perfect. She wasn't blaming me for her feelings once she fully understood the path, and she was willing to grow and develop and work and improve. So that's what you would like to look at, is the person's mind, because all the physical stuff's going to go away, even the money. Like if my wife loved me for my money, because at one time when she met me, I had a lot of money because I was in business. I don't have that money anymore, right? So you would like to get to the point where not only are you in a relationship with someone because of what's going on in their mind, but also they would be with you because of those same things. Because if someone's only with you because of your appearance or your finances or some other thing like this, some other superficial thing, those things are all impermanent. So when they're gone, they're going to be gone. Like if somebody's only with you because of your youthful appearance, as you age, they're not going to be interested in being with you anymore. Right? So you'd like to look at someone's mind and be together with them because of that. And the qualities that the Buddha is teaching you, about mindfulness, and you haven't learned in the foundational classes yet about, certain wise decisions about the 5 precepts and things like this. If you learn some of these other teachings from the Buddha, you'll be able to see how to make decisions about who to include in your life without judging them. And I'm going to teach you that as part of this course too, some of those things. But you need to look at their mind. That's what you're going to be living with. At the end of the day, when you're old and they're old and you guys are just sitting around, you're with their mind. That's what you're with.
So I guess my question is, because I've fallen for people with their mind, but their actions don't. It's not for everyone, but the person I fell for, their actions didn't line up. Like he was all about growth mindset, trying to grow, be better. But then I noticed he would be lying or not, kind of like conning, and to me, principles like that, I don't value that, but I'm still looking at the mind. So do I overlook that? Like, do I overlook the lying or infidelity or whatever?
No, that's the next piece, right? That I would say right now, you don't understand how to look at someone's mind, because what you might have seen is that you think they're spiritual, but that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. What you need to be able to look at is their mind. And when I say look at their mind, if someone's lying or they're having infidelity where they're cheating on you, then their mind has extensive amounts of craving. And you didn't see that because you don't understand that yet, because you just started learning the teachings of the Buddha. So when you're looking at their mind, their actions are an indication to you of what's going on in their mind, right? So you need to look at their actions, but you need to be able to understand how the actions come from the mind, because that's going to give you an indication of what's going on in their mind. So when I would come home and I saw all this food from my wife, I knew that she had an interest in seeing me be well, that she knew I was out working. I'd be working sometimes 12 hours, 16 hours outside the house. And when I came home, boom, she's got food right there ready for me. I was like, wow, this is really great. She really cares about me because she's interested in seeing me be healthy and eat all this healthy food, and it took her a lot of time to go to the store, buy all this stuff, bring it home, prepare it, and I could see that she was interested in seeing me be well. So you need to understand how to look at someone's actions and then see how that relates to their mind, because someone who's lying, their mind isn't very healthy. Someone who is cheating, their mind isn't very healthy in this situation. They're still having craving, desire, attachment. Mm-hmm.
What if they show you the good side, and then the closer you get to them, you see the more toxic behaviors? That's
where you take your time. And now you can make your decision over a period of time and decide whether you would like to be with this person or not. That's why you're not in a rush, and you're not interested in rushing this, because that analogy that I gave you guys with the CEO of your company, and you have a multi-million-dollar company that you're investing in, you take your time. That's not a 1 week decision or even a 1 month decision. If you're hiring a CEO for your company, you're probably going to have 3, 4, 5, 6 different rounds of interviews in different scenarios and different situations over multiple months to decide whether you'd like to hire this person for your company or not. And it's the same thing with dating someone, that you would like to see multiple situations that they're in. The Thai people call the dating process, they call it learning each other. And I think this is a great way to talk about it, is you're learning each other, trying to learn about this person. So observe, you're going to hear me talk. I think it's tomorrow. You'd like to observe, how does this person treat taxi drivers? How does this person treat food servers? How do they talk about their mom and their dad, their brothers and their sisters? How do they talk about their ex-boyfriends or ex-girlfriends? Because that's all going to indicate to you how they're going to treat you. Because early on in their relationship, it's like the honeymoon phase, and they're going to treat you really well, right? But then after that, you're going to be past that, and you're going to see more and more how this person functions. So if you look at how they're treating taxi drivers and food servers, if you see how they're talking about their mom and their dad and their brothers and sisters and their ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends, you're going to be that person pretty soon. So if they're gossiping and slandering and diminishing and degrading their ex-boyfriends and girlfriends, if they're talking bad about their mom and dad and their brothers and sisters, what they're telling you is that they have difficulties in relationships and they don't know how to have healthy relationships, because they're going to be blaming all those people for the struggles that they're experiencing in their day-to-day life, because they don't understand that it's their own mind that's causing those struggles in their day-to-day life. So if they're complaining about their mom and dad, brothers, sisters, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, they're treating taxi drivers and food servers in a degrading and disparaging way, you're going to be the very next person that they're going to be doing that with, because they don't know how to have healthy relationships yet. So those are the types of things that you would like to look at. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Let me just check here online. Okay, I don't see any here either. So it's 12:15. We can take an hour and a half lunch break today, which is normally what we do, and come back at 1:45. And we're going to do meditation together this afternoon, just like we do each afternoon. And then I'm going to teach you this next topic, which is... what was it? It was how to eliminate attachment to those who are closest to you, right? Your life partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your parents, your siblings. These are the ones These are the relationships that you have that have the deepest attachment, and that's why you have the most struggles and challenges in those relationships. With your friends, your associates, your coworkers, you have a pretty decent relationship there. But your life partner and your parents and your siblings, these are where you have the strongest attachment, and that's why it's the most challenging in those relationships. So in terms of getting to harmonious relationships, you're going to need to eliminate those attachments. So that's why we're going to focus on that this afternoon after our meditation. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate attachment to the people who are closest to you, because that's what's going to help you to get to harmony in those relationships. So if you'd like to enjoy lunch and come back, I'm going to start up again at 1:45, and perhaps I'll see you guys then. Okay? Sawadee Cup. Sawadee Cup.